Welcome to the Truman Charities podcast. I am Jamie Truman, your host. I'm sure you all remember this song, Father of Mine, from Everclear's double platinum album, So Much for the Afterglow. For my upcoming podcast / books coming out early next year, I'm focusing on the impact fathers have in a child's life. I reached out to the lead singer of Everclear, Alexakis, to learn about the story behind his hit song, Father of Mine. We talk about the impact that has had on him and his family growing up with an absentee father, the struggles he faced while growing up, and how he was able to break the cycle and become a loving husband and father to his wife and two beautiful daughters. And advice he has for young men facing the same struggles that he faced while growing up. And last, but definitely not least, we talk about his upcoming tour and where you can purchase tickets. I personally will be front and center at the Fillmore in Silver Spring on September 13th to see Everclear. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did, and I look forward to seeing you September 13th at the Fillmore. Hi, Art. How are you?
I'm good. Good morning, Jamie. How are you?
Great. It's kind of
Awesome.
surreal talking to you. I used to listen to your music. I mean, I still do, but gosh, since I was in middle school, Everclear's been around since 91. So
Yeah.
I grew
92,
up listening to your music.
92.
92.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. So I know some of my favorite songs, like Santa Monica, and everybody knows I Will Buy You a New Life. And of course, my ultimate favorite, Father of Mine, which we are going to be talking about later. So you have been very well respected musician and artist, and I'm excited to learn a little bit more about you and about, your writing.
Sure.
So first, I wanted to start out. I've watched several interviews of you, over the years. And I know that you have mentioned that your father left when you were young, when you were 5 years old. And I want to know, do you have any memories, if any, of your early childhood, of your family dynamic?
I absolutely do. Yeah. My memories go back to about when I was 3 years old, which is pretty
Oh,
normal.
okay.
But they're images, they're kind of splintered images. I remember my dad and my mom, he left when I was 6. So, and he was abusive, mostly mentally and verbally to my mother. It became physically abusive. And that's when my mom left him, which was a very brave thing for a woman to do in the late 60s. Because there still wasn't a very good stigma about divorced women, but she did it because it was the right move to do for her children. And even though she's passed, I'm still very proud of my mother. I was raised by my mother by a single mom. And my dad should have moved down the street and raised his kids, but he didn't. He went to the other side of the country, married a younger woman, and raised her kids. So I didn't really know my dad. I met him like a few times over the years. He called very sporadically, literally, like in the song, sent me $5 on my birthday. I was still calling me cowboy when I was 12, 13, 14 years old, because last time he knew me, when I was 5 or 6, I wanted to be a cowboy. So my relationship with my dad was always like that. I lived with him for a short while because I was getting in trouble in my teen years. But we never really connected. We never really gelled. And it's interesting because my father died a few years ago, and he died 3 days before David Bowie died. And I was sad about my dad, but, I didn't really know him that well. I knew him, but he didn't give me all that much. David Bowie died. It broke my heart because even though I'd met him once in passing, as an artist, he had given me so much over the years. Really just so much that at times just being who he was impressed me. So that's my kind of juxtaposition between a rock star giving me more than my own father did. He
Yeah.
never paid child support. He never supported anything. I blamed him for years, but with my brother's death, my brother died of an overdose when he was 21. I was 12, and the breakup was really hard on him. I was young enough that I think kids who aren't in their teens,
Mm-hmm.
or younger, can adapt to divorce better, especially when the parents handle it better. But to be fair to both of them, to be fair to my father and my mother, in the late 60s, no one knew how to be divorced. Very few people knew how to be divorced.
Right. That's true. Yeah.
They weren't brought up there. That was the stigma. That was
Mm-hmm.
the last resort, and you were shamed for life. That was the idea, that people put into each other's head about what divorce was about. And unfortunately, it just left a lot of damaged people like myself. You know,
So when your mom moved and they separated and got divorced, how old were your siblings at the time? Were you the youngest?
yeah, I'm the baby. There
So
was
you're
five
the
kids.
baby.
There's
Okay.
5 kids. My oldest sister Paula was already out of the house. She had already gotten married and had a baby by the
Mm-hmm.
time she was 18, barely 18, maybe 17, 18. There's a picture of her in her graduation gown with a very pregnant stomach. But this was the late 60s. So but she and I are the only ones still alive. I had a brother, so it was girl, boy, George. Kiki was my middle sister. Vicky was the sister right above me, about 5 years ahead of me. And
Mm-hmm.
then I was the accident baby that happened when my family moved to California from Detroit
Mm-hmm.
in the late 50s. I was born in 62. So they hadn't planned on a fifth child, but there you go. What are you going to do?
And so do you think, as you were saying a little bit earlier, that they took it a lot harder than you did at
Oh,
first?
destroyed them.
Mm-hmm.
Destroyed them. Yeah, all my whole family was um just drugs and alcohol, especially with my brother and my eldest sister's first husband, um, was just rampant. It's the late 60s, early 70s,
Mm-hmm.
and my sisters just were kind of lost,
Mm-hmm.
um, and they kind of, in hindsight, they were kind of lost their whole lives. And it's so important. And I got to tell you, as a father, I take it so seriously, and that this honor of being a parent, because everything is going to affect them. Everything negative or positive is going to affect your children somewhere down the line. And I just, especially being a role model as a male for daughters. All I have is daughters. I have 2 daughters. You have sons?
I have all sons.
All sons. I
Three
have
boys.
see, you've obviously your husband had good karma. I have horrible karma. So I have 2 daughters. And that's fine. That's fine. I accept it 100% because there's no one loves you more than a daughter loves her daddy
Mhm.
up until she's about 12 or 13.
I
And
think
then
that's for most kids.
and then it just kind of just no debt
But then
knows.
they come back early
Well,
20s.
I hope to see that. My eldest hasn't come back to me or her mom yet, but I hope that that's the case. But she's doing really well. That's all I care about. She's happy and flourishing. My youngest daughter is just like the apple of my eye. That sounds so stupid, but it's really true. She's just she and my wife, our family right now is so strong, and a large part of that is because of my sobriety. I'm about to hit 34 years sober. I work my program very hard. I have a great fellowship. I have a great spiritual relationship. And I I just love what I do. I'm a 61-year-old guy with MS, and I get to play rock and roll for a living. I mean, come
Can we
on.
talk a little bit about, so you say you're 34 years sober, You've been through sobriety for 34 years?
Almost.
Almost 34 years.
We don't call it that until it's there. It's on
Okay.
the 15th is my sobriety birthday. So,
Oh,
yeah.
that's very exciting.
Yeah.
And so what was the moment when you decided that you had to get sober?
Oh, I had a really, really bad experience. Well, I had many bad experiences. I was a blackout drunk. I had gotten off hard drugs a few years earlier, and I put all that energy into drinking. And regardless of what people tell you, I mean, with the exception of maybe fentanyl, which we can talk about later, which is horrifying, um, uh, nothing gets you more messed up than alcohol. Alcohol is just so vicious on your body, your soul, your spirit, your mental capacity. If you're addicted to alcohol, if you're truly an alcoholic, as I am, I became a blackout drunk where I would just go to work, remember leaving work at lunchtime to go, just get a drink, and then black out and then show up. My wife at the time, my first wife, bless her heart, would go through bars looking for me because I just disappear. There's no cell phones, no pagers, just and I'd show up 2 or 3 days later, scrapes or bruises all over me. Didn't know how they got there. Hands busted up, obviously been in fights. Just wow.
Is it just something that when you take a drink, there's just no kind of stopping?
Yeah. I think with addicts, and we talk about this in the program a lot in recovery, with I liken it to like a hole inside of you, right? And you're trying to fill the hole. Addicts try to fill the hole with anything that creates dopamine, right? Something as benign as sugar to something as vicious as heroin and cocaine, alcohol, sex, power, anger, shame. I would do things that were shameful, and it didn't bother me because I understood shame. I call it I'm writing a book right now. And in the book, I call it the warm waters of my shame because I felt comfortable there. I felt comfortable when people underestimated me, just incredibly low self-esteem. And a lot of that I have to attribute. I'm not trying to point fingers and blame and take things away from me, but when you look at root causes of it, my family breaking up when I was 4, 5, 6, with the violence and the everything that was going along with that, had a horrible impact on me, obviously, my whole family. So,
And did you find at all, how did you get into music? Did you find that as an escape, or tell me a little bit about that? Like how?
Well, I remember when I was 3 and a half, it must have been 1965 or 1966. My mom would put me to bed in my jammies, right? And she'd leave the door open so I could hear what was going on because I didn't like a total dark room. And there was like lights coming from the front room. And a lot of times I would like sneak out and go hide behind the couch. And this is the 60s. Her and my dad are sitting there drinking highballs and stuff. My mom had the big hairdo.
Very 60s.
And totally 60s.
Yeah.
And I was peeking around I heard this music that was just like, all I remember is it just made my body vibrate. And I went around and looked around the corner of the couch, and it was the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, the last time they were on Ed Sullivan, and they were playing, and I couldn't control myself. I ran to the TV and just started jumping around. And of course, my siblings and my mom and dad are laughing about it. And I never wanted to do anything else since then. True. Sad, because I was a smart kid, not great grades, but tested really well because I was smart. And my mom wanted me to go to college after I got clean the first time, not sober, but clean. And I took film because I wanted to do something creative. She wanted me to take, engineering or something to fall back on.
Right.
It's just not me. You can't make your kids, you got kids, you can't make them be what you want them to be.
Right.
You
I can
can nudge them.
understand why she wanted you to do it. Like as a
Of
mom, you're like
course.
the safety of like,
Of course. Absolutely.
lawyer,
That was a
engineer, something
time.
like that.
Yeah, but now with my children, I want them to find their bliss.
Right.
I want them to find their bliss and be able to monetize it,
Mhm.
to make a living. Because I never wanted to be rich. I really didn't. If I wanted to be rich, I would have made much better moves in my career than I did. But I've always wanted to not worry about money, to be comfortable.
Mhm.
And I am very comfortable. And I'm comfortable enough that I can put my daughter through college when she goes to college, and my eldest daughter. Um, uh, you know, so I'm fortunate, and I get to do it by playing music, which is just, that wasn't part of the plan
Mhm.
back in the 60s and 70s and 80s. So what do you want to do with your life? I want to play guitar in a rock and roll band, man, and have a family. That's what I wanted. I wanted the white picket fence, but I wanted to play rock and roll. And be careful what you ask for, because that's what I got. Basically, I don't have a white picket fence, but I got a nice wall with electric chains.
Yes. So tell me what that feeling was like when you first heard a song of yours on the radio.
Well, that would go back to like one of my earlier bands on college radio, and that was pretty exciting. But when Everclear started breaking, and we went from clubs like opening for people or headlining small clubs, and Santa Monica or even Heroin Girl, it just exponentially got bigger. But when Santa Monica hit, our first big single, it was drastic. It went from us headlining like 400 seat clubs to like blowing out 1,500 seat clubs, extra nights, multiple nights, crowds going around the block. Um, it was it was amazing. When my A&R guy calls me one day and goes, just want to let you know you ship gold. You got a gold album. And I'm like, wow. And then
Yeah.
like a week later, he goes, I was wrong. You don't have a gold album. I'm like, what? He goes, no, you got a platinum album. I'm
like, oh, phew.
and
Much better.
taking my mom to the platinum record party was comedy gold, man. She had no idea what was going on.
I was
And
going
then,
to ask you her reaction. So,
well, it's interesting because I told her what was going on. She's hillbilly, man. She's from the deep South, and she lived in California, and she was just an old school working girl, right? She was a grinder, man. Tenacity. She always did the right thing, and I loved her for it. I resented her at times as a kid growing up. Now looking back, I'm so grateful for every
right.
moment I had with her. But I told her that I'm flying her. She was living in Portland. I said, because she wanted to be near her grandkids.
Mhm.
And I had a couple of sisters living up there at the time, as well as my daughter. And I'm like, Mom, you're going with me to the platinum record thing. And she goes, I don't know what the hell that is. And, and I make, the stylist lady made her a dress. We pick her up, we fly first class. And she's like, are you sure we're supposed to be up here? We're not supposed to be up here. And then we didn't know that we have a limo pick us up, right there, pick us up right in front of the airport, take us to this like big restaurant down in Venice. And they've got spotlights and they've got red carpet and paparazzi and all this stuff. And she's like, boy, she called me boy, is this for you? I go, yeah, mama. She goes, what is this platinum thing? I go, that means I sold 1 million records.
Yeah.
And she's like, 1 million people bought your record, that noisy rock and roll record? And I go, yeah, imagine that. I go, it's probably going to go double platinum the way it's looking. And she's like, that's 2 million. I go, yeah. And she goes, this is for you. And we're just sitting inside the limo and people are waiting to open the door. And I'm like, she's like, okay, let's go. And I knock on the window and they open it and she's like just waving at people, it's just like I always knew that he was going to be something special, as my mom. And but giving that to her was just
I mean, nothing better.
nah, nah.
Yeah.
She, buying her a house and taking care of her in the last years. Um, she died of cancer in 2006, and my eldest sister and me lived in Portland. And my sister's like, "I'll take care of her day to day because you're traveling so much. You just pay all the bills, and I'll take care of her." And I'm like, "Done." Just see her once a week, and I never failed, never missed it. Breakfast once a week or more, but I was able to spend more and more time with her at the end there, and thank God she got to meet my wife now because she didn't like my choice in wives earlier. But man, when she met Vanessa, she was like, "This is the one, boy.
That's it. Yeah.
Don't screw it up." And she didn't say screw. She said, "Don't screw this up."
Yep. Moms know.
Yeah. Listen to your mom. Listen to your mom.
Right.
Anyway.
So when here you are, you have a platinum record, you're
Right.
famous around the world. What was the reaction did you hear from your father at that point, or what was the reaction from your siblings as well?
Siblings just, I don't want to bad talk the dead, but siblings and their children just hit me up for a lot of money and never paid it back, except for the wife of one of my daughter's sons. So my daughter, I guess my niece-in-law, she borrowed some money and paid it back every dime. And but I knew that was going to happen. I had people in my life, my A&R guys, like, "Look, man, people are going to lose their minds. They don't know how to act like this." Because I went from being a kid that grew up in a housing project that had always struggled for money to up here making millions. And it was it was a different world. Getting that big house up on the hill, much different from outside looking in than inside looking out, for sure. And it was a hard juxtaposition for sure. But I don't know. It was a learning experience. It still is, and I'm still grateful for all of it, even the hard things, because it makes me a better person from learning from it, pushing through it.
So let's talk about.
I'm
Go
grateful
ahead.
to my father because
Okay.
for not being there, because it taught me to be able to have to fend for myself in a lot of ways that I shouldn't have at such a young age. But I'm grateful for the strength it gave me, for sure.
Yeah.
What were you going to ask? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no, not at all. I was just kind of going to talk a little bit about really what you just mentioned. And I wanted to talk about how you came up with Father Mine, which was one of your largest singles.
Yeah. It's probably our second or third largest single.
Yeah.
But it impacted a lot of people across the board, different ethnicities, different people from different economic backgrounds. Parental abandonment is not something that's relegated to just one section of our society. It's pervasive. And I remember I was writing songs for our third album, the follow-up to Sparkle and Fade, which was our first album, which had Santa Monica on it. It was our second album, had Santa Monica on it. And I remember putting my baby my eldest daughter to sleep. She's 5, but she's my baby. And you ever watch your kids sleep? Just watch them sleep.
Of course.
It's like parents do that. Other people think you're insane. It's like
your kid though.
Okay, glass of wine. Let's go watch the baby sleep. It's like it's cheap entertainment, man, but it makes you feel really good. Wow, we did that.
I know.
That. And
like I made this. It's
yeah.
it's a miracle. It's really.
You made
Wow.
it together with your partner, and that's what a bonding experience, that sense of family that I never had growing up.
Mm-hmm.
I had then, and I have now even more so with my family now.
When you were having your oldest daughter, um, what was that like when you first found out you were going to have a child?
Well, so when I met her mom, we fell in love. She was living in Portland. She moved to San Francisco to live with me, and we were so in love that we were like, let's not use birth control. Let's have a baby, you know. And we didn't have any money, but we had love and sex, and that seemed like a good thing. And then, like 3, 4 months into that, we're like, maybe we ought to taper that back a little bit, because the pink cloud's kind of wearing off, as it does with relationships. And by that time, it's too late. We had a baby. We had a baby on the way, and we moved to Portland because we were living in San Francisco, and public schools were not good there,
Mm-hmm.
and they were in Portland, and we could eventually buy a house in Portland. So I agreed to move to Portland. They had a great music scene going on. So we moved up there in around December of 91. My daughter was born in June of 92. And I was pretty excited about it. When she was born,
Mm-hmm.
I remember being, I was there, and then I left after the baby was born. I went home to go get some stuff because we were in a suite, and I said I could spend the night with my wife. And I went home to get some clothes for her and for me. And I felt postpartum depression. I felt like this weight, literal weight on me, because I'm sitting there going, man, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I can barely take care of myself. I have to take care of a child. And I'm just sitting there, and it was like a God shot where all of a sudden I saw this light in the room, and this lightness just beam. And I just realized I always put her first, and it's going to be okay. That's it. Even if I have to work 3 jobs and play in a band, I put her first. That's my driving impetus, is her, that she's okay. And it's never failed me, to be honest with you. Just priorities, by prioritizing and being tenacious. Because when people go, do you have any words of wisdom for people? And I go, me? No. But if I had to give you something, if you want something really bad, don't give up. Because you might not get it anyways, but you definitely will not get it if you give up. And there's always someone right behind you waiting, like, excuse me, thank you. They want it more than you. And you have to want it more than anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never done anything unscrupulous business-wise, but I drive myself hard, and I drive people around me really hard. Not so much anymore, but in the years that mattered, I did. But let me get back to the father of mine thing, because I think it's important. So basically, me and my wife at the time were watching my daughter sleep, and it just came to me of like thinking of my dad. It's like, how does a guy walk away from this? I mean, how do you do that? How do you see this and walk away from this? How do you do this? And my wife was going to bed, and I'm like, I'm gonna go work. I had an office, and I had an acoustic guitar in there, and I go in there and write. And I just started writing words, and just building a story, and playing a couple of riffs, came up with the riff for Father of Mine. And by the morning, I had pretty much all of it done. And a couple of days later, I'd say about 2 weeks later, I had the song done, and I was down in California at the Capitol building, because we were signed to Capitol.
Mm-hmm.
And my A&R guy knew to not like push me on songs, because I didn't do demos, and I was going to give you the record, and you're going to put it out. That's how it's going to go. And which is really arrogant in hindsight, but I'd probably do the same thing today. But he's like, you got anything you can tell me about, or play me something or something? And he had a guitar in his office. I go, you want to hear a little bit of a song? He goes, yeah. So I start playing it and I play the whole song. And he's this stoic Brit, they don't show emotion, but he's sitting there and he's wiping his eyes behind his glasses. And out in the front room where the secretaries or assistants had their desks, I hear sobbing. I hear the sound. And we walk out, and there's 4 young women sitting on a desk, hugging each other, weeping, weeping. That is the best song I've ever heard. Just crying. And my A&R guy goes, well, I don't know if it's a single, but it's going on the record. And I'm like, okay. And, when it was recorded and mixed and everything, I and he pushed for it to be a single, even though I didn't know what was going to happen with it.
Really?
We had a couple of hits before it. Everything to Everyone was a number 1 hit at Alternative. I'll Buy You a New Life was the number 1 hit at Alternative. Did okay at Pop, but Father of Mine was the one that brought it home on that record.
What was it like when you found out how popular that song actually became?
It was weird. I would be places, and I'd already gotten that from Santa Monica and from the other singles, people recognizing me from videos and talking to me. Father of Mine would bring people to me and they would just tell me their story. I'd be in the supermarket and people would just start telling me their story.
What was that like?
It was intense. It was intense. I really wasn't really
prepared,
looking for that or set up for that. I'm not a therapist. But I've been through enough therapy. I probably could be. But one of the things that I really loved about it is I got people from every race, every psychological makeup, every financial background. It didn't matter. It was really, really interesting when people would come up and tell me their stories. And it made an impact on me for sure. I was at Starbucks this morning, and this just, I had to go in. I usually go through the drive-thru. I went in, and this guy's next to me, and he's talking. He goes, "Do you know who that is?" And she's like, "Yeah, that's Art." Because I come in every day. These young women don't know Everclear, they're like in their 20s. And he's like, "No, you don't understand." He goes, "He's a rock star." And then he's like, "You're a rock star. Father of Mine. That song changed my life. It changed everything." And I'm like, "And you need to lower your voice a little bit." He was yelling.
He's excited.
I guess so. I called my wife. She's like, "You're just troublemaker. You're causing trouble, man. Cut it out."
Well, you would be surprised. My stepson, he's 20. He loves you guys. And a lot of his friends do.
You know what's funny? You know what's funny, Jamie, is that I'd say at least a quarter, if not more, of the people coming to see us are kids around his age, late teens, early 20s, mid 20s, who were either not even born when we had our first records come out, or babies, and I think there's a lot of people really hungry for rock and roll. Yeah. And I think a lot of 90s bands are doing well because of it, because I think that was the last era of guitar-based rock and roll that was on the radio that was really popular. Bands like us, we played Saturday Night Live. They're not putting rock and roll bands on Saturday Night Live anymore. Right. It's just not happening. And it was a different era. And I've said it many times, most of us that were making music in the 90s grew up in the 70s when it was, Cheap Trick, Aerosmith, Led Zeppelin, bands like that, guitar bands were on the radio. So that's kind of what we grew up with. And then it, went through hip hop and punk rock and all that stuff. So I think we brought something new to it because of it.
Yeah,
And
I think kids are they're longing for something without auto tune.
thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Without auto tune and without tracks,
Some talent.
without like just something, and not. It's like the kids they talk about don't want metal, they want rock and roll. They want guitars and they want voices and they want passion and excitement. And I get it. I still do. I will be a 90-year-old guy with bad hearing, just pissing off everybody at the old folks home, just cranking it up. Hopefully they'll have a punk rock old folks home.
All right. I did want to ask you, so when Father of Mine came out, and it's this huge hit, and everybody's talking, it like coming at you wherever you are, and obviously still this morning, people are talking to you about it. So did your father ever talk to you about that song that you wrote? Because obviously he knows that was about him.
Yeah, he did. I remember he reached out to me when that song had come out, and he was like, hey boy, he had this real Greek accent, and he'd be like, I hear you wrote a song about me. I hope you did. Yeah, I hope you did me proud. I go, well, Dad, you haven't heard it? He goes, no, I haven't heard it yet. Well, it's honest. It's honest and true. And he didn't say much after that because I don't think he wanted to hear honest and true. And then I didn't hear anything about it after that. We talk sporadically. My sisters would push me to talk to my dad, and one of my sisters who I never really got along with very well after I grew up. She was very over here politically and religiously, and I wasn't. Sure. And but someone asked her about, like, did your brother, like, is he romanticizing that? Like, did he make a lot of that stuff up? And about your dad, my sister's like, no, Arthur, they call me Arthur. Arthur was being nice. He was being kind. If I had written the song, it wouldn't have been that nice. So, yeah.
It's truthful, right?
Because they were older and they saw a lot more of what was going on than I did. It's like him just walking by and smacking my mom, or cheating on my mom with her best friends, and people like neighbors and stuff like that. Yeah. My dad made a lot of bad choices, man. I have compassion for him because, I everybody makes bad choices, and I've been the king of making bad choices. I never made those kind of choices when it comes to my kids, but he did. And he was abandoned as a kid. He was his dad and mom came over on the boat after World War I in 1919, and my grandfather met my grandmother. She was like 12 or 13 or 14, something like that. Which back then for Greek people, people from the old country, perfect. Let's get married.
Yeah.
And worked out a deal with her parents, kind of an arranged marriage, forced marriage. Moved to New Hampshire, had 2 children, and she was pregnant again, and she ran off with a Fuller Brush salesman, a door-to-door salesman. True story.
Oh my gosh.
In 1924, right?
Wow.
Yeah. To get away from that man. Yeah. And my grandfather, typical of the men in my family, took his sons, put them on a boat with a nurse, with a nanny, sent them to Greece, and he was done. Sent him to Greece to be raised by his mom, because his dad was off roaming the countrysides, having, illegitimate children with other people. I come from a long line of people that of men that adhered to that cycle. I am the first one that broke that cycle of not.
Why do you think you were able to do that?
Because my mother raised me. flat out. My mom never really bad talked my dad like a lot of women would in that situation of
Mm-hmm.
the abuse and the abandonment and not paying child support and all that. My mom did, but it was very passive aggressive. She'd be like, boy, a real man doesn't leave his children and move to the other side of the country and raise someone else's children. A real man realizes that people grow apart and takes gets divorced and moves down the street and raises his children with his ex-wife.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always believed that. I still believe that to this day. You can't work it out. Don't put it on your kids, man. Put your kids first and raise them up. And I see a lot of people doing it. One of the unfortunate things about the fact that there's, the divorce rate is what it is that we've learned to be better at 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 divorce and raising children in divorce. And I see a lot of families, mixed families,
Mm-hmm.
remarrying, having children. You have stepchildren. My wife has a stepdaughter. It isn't easy. It's hard. It's really hard, especially, sometimes you get along with your stepchild's mother or father. Sometimes you don't. And
Yeah.
it's not, you know, but you got to try. You
Right.
got to do the work. You got to grind it out and be there and be positive and and find love, be able
Yeah.
to love it. You don't have to like, you have to love it. You don't have to
Mm-hmm.
like it.
Mm-hmm.
That's my take. Because we say that, in recovery is like, look, man, if you're my sober brother or sister, I'm going to love you. I don't necessarily have to like you, but I have to be there for you
Mm-hmm.
as, as a sober person. And that's something that's really important, I think. And, just doing the steps and doing recovery and working it every day. I see my wife has seen how it's, you know, changed me because I was sober before I met her, but just how I've evolved with it. And she's involved in different programs around that as well. And she's not an addict. She barely had one drink. She's a cheap date for sure. I gotta hit that window, right? That one window. Um, but we just have such a great relationship right now. And all my relationships with everybody, with people I've known for years or people I'm just meeting are better because of my sobriety and my relationship with my higher power, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
For me,
If someone's listening to this and they are, a younger girl or boy, either one, and they're having struggles because they're from a broken family, they have an absentee dad, and they're really struggling right now. Like, what would you say to them?
I urge them 100% to get into therapy and find a great therapist. Whether it doesn't matter how much money you have, there's programs everywhere. Um, and don't settle for someone that doesn't get you or you don't get them. There's plenty of people out there. But if you can find that relationship of a therapist or a mentor or a coach, um, it's just wonderful what we can all give back. I'm a certified life coach.
Are you?
Yeah, and I'm just starting to build clientele now. I've been waiting because we've been touring so much, and um, I've got this book deal, and just I got a lot going on. I got
Yeah.
MS, and now they tell me I got pancreatitis or something like that. It's just, I mean, getting old sucks. It just sucks because I feel 15. Don't you feel like a kid inside?
It is strange as you get older. I
I
just
look
turned
at them and
40
I'm
and I
like,
was like, I feel 20.
well, you look great though. But I'm looking at me and I'm like, who the hell is this guy? Who's that guy? That's not that good looking blonde guy. That's not that guy. Anyway, but I still feel like the kid. And I think that that's more important than anything
Mm-hmm.
because even this is going to break down and go away. Beauty is going to go away. Beauty becomes more of an internal thing. But man, just I I'm just grateful. I have a lot of gratitude in my life right now. And like I said, I can be grateful to COVID because COVID brought a bunch of horrible stuff, but it also brought good stuff. And I'm focusing on the good stuff from the lockdowns of just Zoom. It's just Zoom meetings
Yeah.
for recovery has been a huge part for millions of people
Mm-hmm.
and just connecting with people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we weren't doing interviews on Zoom before COVID.
No.
It's probably every interview you do is on Zoom.
Yes, now everything is on Zoom
I'm
that I
on
do.
Zoom at least once a day,
Yeah.
minimum.
Yeah,
Doing
minimum.
interviews today, I got like, the interviews are really starting to kick in
Mm-hmm.
for the tour, and they haven't even kicked in for the album yet because we haven't really released a press release for the album. We've just kind of teased it, but we have a live album coming out right at the same time as the tour.
Yeah,
And
so before I let you go, let's talk about that tour.
okay,
Yeah. So when does it begin, and what
it,
cities are you going to be in?
well, it kicks off September 6th.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of major markets and a lot of tertiary markets as well. It's 30 dates. It's going to start in the Midwest in Lexington, Kentucky, and it's going to end out here in California in the desert, um, at a place called Pappy and Harriet's where Paul McCartney's played and everybody. It's like a very hip place to play, and it'd be our third year in a row ending the tour out there.
Wow.
And it's about 2 hours from my house, so my family will get a ride out there with someone. My wife's aunt lives in Palm Springs, which is right next to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Coachella is out there, the whole thing. But yeah, we've got a lot of great dates. It's all online. Go to everclearmusiconline.com, and it's just we're touring with the Ataris, great band from Central California to add some hits back in the aughts, I guess
Mm-hmm.
you'd call it, and another band from that era from Nashville. Excuse me,
That's,
called the Pink Spiders. It's going to be a fun rock and roll, punk
I
rock.
I can't wait. We're already getting our tickets for you'll be at Fillmore in Silver Spring on the 13th of September.
Yep.
So we will be seeing you then.
Are you
But
bringing your stepson? Is your
I'm sorry.
stepson? Is your stepson come?
Oh yeah, he's gonna come.
Okay, awesome. I look forward to meeting you in person.
Yeah, me too. No, so I'll make sure that everything's in the show notes as well, for everyone, so you can just click really quickly to purchase your tickets for the tour. And
Great.
before I let you go, is there anything that we haven't covered that you'd want anyone to know?
Just everybody keep your eye out for our first real big live record. It's going to be a double live vinyl record. It'll
Oh,
be digital as well. There's going to be a video for it. It'll have it's called, strangely enough, Everclear live at the Whiskey A Go Go, at the legendary Whiskey A Go Go. We played last year and recorded it, and it sounds really great. We worked really hard on it, and it's raw and kind of sloppy, but still very rock and roll and still
I'm
tight.
excited.
It's
Okay,
exciting.
I can't let you go without asking this, or else my husband will die. He needs to know. What was your favorite song that you ever have written?
I don't know if there's one, but if I had to choose one,
It's a hard question, I'm sure.
yeah, it's like which child do you like the
That's
best?
what I was thinking.
Go ahead. You tell me yours, I'll tell you mine.
I depends on the hour.
Everybody has their favorite child. Come on. But
I have a
you're not gonna,
2-year-old, so it depends on the hour.
ooh,
Yeah,
sometimes the minute. Yeah,
right.
if they're throwing things at you.
Oh,
Um uh there's a song, I mean, I'm very grateful to my hits. I'm very grateful to Santa Monica. It bought me houses and a couple of divorces. I'm very grateful for that. because I wouldn't be where I'm at now without all that, even the bad stuff. And I'm just grateful for it. I'm just so internally grateful. But there's a song called Learning How to Smile that's on our fourth record, Songs from America Movie Volume 1, Learning How to Smile. I think that's a pretty great song. And a song I did for my solo record, a song called Hot Water Test, which is about my MS, my multiple sclerosis, which I was diagnosed with in 2016, but the song came out in 2019, and I hadn't been public about it. Family, friends knew about it. I talked to people about it. I wasn't hiding it, but I wasn't talking about it because I needed to process it. I needed to process what it was and what it was doing to me. And I think that song came out pretty honest and pretty good.
Well, thank you so much for sharing everything about your life and what you have going on now and your upcoming tour. And you're one of the most positive people I've met. And it's been a really, it's been wonderful and quite an honor to have this conversation with you.
Thanks,
so
Jamie.
I appreciate you taking out the time to talk to me.
You're very welcome. It was wonderful talking to you. And thank you for calling me positive. People tell me that all the time. I'm like, man, I don't know when that happened. It's obviously happened in the last few years. And I'm grateful for that because before that, I was kind of a dark cloud walking around. But I'm grateful. And I think that comes through. So thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you, Art, and have a great rest of the day.
Bye, Jamie.
Bye.
Bye.
If you liked this episode, please make sure to rate and review our podcast. That is how more people learn about the Truman Charities podcast and our organization. And to make sure you don't miss any of our future episodes, subscribe. If you'd like to follow Truman Charities, you can follow us on Facebook at Truman Charities, Instagram at Jamie_Truman Charities, and check out our website, trumancharities.com.